Hello students, now I will be starting with eggs and poultry in this particular module, and we will be talking about the structure, composition and the nutritive value of both these category of foods. Now, although eggs of all birds may be eaten, the egg of chicken is used more often than any other. The whole structure and composition of egg are designed to provide for the development of the chick. Now let us look at the structure and the physical composition of egg. Now I have given you a picture. It very clearly explains the details, but let me just cover it for you. Physical composition of eggs, it is made up of three major parts: the shell and the shell membranes, which form 11% of the entire egg. Albumin or egg white forms 58% of the whole egg. Yolk forms about 31% of whole egg, which total is about 100%. Now, the eggshell consists of the outermost cuticle, the spongy or the calcareous layer, and the third is the mammalia layer or the matrix, and the fourth is the pores. The shell forms the protective covering of the inner contents of the egg along with the two membranes. It is made up of protein polysaccharide and calcium carbonate. The color of the shell depends on the breed of the hen and does not indicate the nutritional value of the egg. The shell is porous and allows the gases to pass in and out of the egg for the developing embryo. The pores are covered with a thin layer of mucoprotein called as cuticle or the bloom. Now, the shell membrane consists of air cell, outer shell membrane and inner shell membrane. The inner and the outer shell membrane measures around 40 to 70 microns and 10 to 20 microns in thickness respectively. And the air cell is situated in between the two membranes, usually on the broader end of the egg. Now, egg white or albumin, it consists namely of four layers. First, the chelaziferous or the inner thick white, then the inner thin white or albumin, then outer thick or firm or dense albumin and outer thin albumin. Now, let us see. The chelaziferous layer is very close to the yolk, immediately surrounding the vitelline membrane of the yolk. Now, this is very firm and thick albumin, and it twists into two cords on either sides of the yolk. They are called as chelazae, which are formed due to the rotational movement of the egg in the oviduct. Now, functions of chelazae basically are: 1. Chelazae will hold the yolk firmly in its central position and thus serves as an anchor to the yolk. The chelazae are believed to contain a protein called lysozyme, which possesses antimicrobial properties and helps to prevent the microbial spoilage of the egg. Now, aging occurs in the egg due to improper storage, and microbial spoilage makes thick albumin watery. Now, coming to the egg yolk, it consists of concentric layers of dark and light colored yolk material due to the differences in the deposition of carotenoid pigments during day and night. Now, latebra is the center of the yolk, which is a small neatly circular core of light, which is light colored fluid which does not completely harden on boiling. Now, third is the germinal disc or the germ spot, which is the reproductive nucleus. It is a light colored spot located on the surface of the yolk just under the vitelline membrane. In an infertile egg, it is unicellular ovum and it contains a haploid number of chromosomes called as the blastodisc. Now, it is circular in shape with a diameter of about 3.5 mm and with vacuoles in it, whereas in a fertile egg it is multicellular structure having diploid number of chromosomes, and this is called as blastoderm. Now, it is oval in shape with an average diameter of about 4.5 mm and with no vacuoles in it. Sixth, the vitelline membrane is a semi-permeable elastic membrane which surrounds the yolk, separating the yolk material from the albumin, and this is where I am ending the first module about the structure of the egg, and I hope it is quite clear to you after you study the picture which is given along with this. Now, the chemical composition of eggs. The weight and composition of table egg is dependent on the heredity, the age, season, diet of the hen and other factors. A typical white egg usually weighs between 53 to 63 grams with an average of 55 grams. Now, egg consists of three main parts, as we have seen: the shell, the egg white and the egg yolk. The shell consists of calcite crystals embedded in a matrix of proteins and polysaccharide complex. Now, inside the shell, the viscous colorless liquid is called the egg white, which accounts for about 58% of the total weight. The composition of egg white and the yolk is given in the following table. Now, as you can see, there is water, protein, fat and minerals, and the details are also there. Now, the egg white is composed of thin and thick portions, and 20 to 25% of the total white of the fresh eggs, which are 1 to 5 days old, is thin white. The chief constituents of egg white besides water are various type of proteins. These are present in egg white. Now, let us see the following. What are the various components? The first one and the major one is the ovalbumin, which is 55% of the egg white proteins. This is a phosphate glycoprotein and it is composed of three components: A1, A2 and A3, which differ only in the phosphorus content. Then we have the corn albumin. This constitutes about 13% of protein of the egg albumin, and it consists of two forms, neither of which contains phosphorus nor sulfur. Now, we have ovomucoid, which is the third protein component in the egg white. It is a glycoprotein. This constitutes about 10% of the egg white proteins. Now, ovomucin is the next. This protein is responsible for the jelly-like character of egg white and the thickness of thick albumin. It contains 2% of the egg white. Its content in the thick layers of albumin is 4 times more than in the thin layers of albumin. Now, it is insoluble in water but soluble in dilute salt solution. Now, lysozyme is one of the contents of the egg, and it is to an extent of 3.5%. This is an enzyme which is capable of lysing or dissolving the cell wall of bacteria, and it is composed of three components: lysozyme A, lysozyme B and lysozyme C. Now, it binds biotin and makes the vitamin unavailable when the egg is in a raw state or when the egg is not cooked and consumed as it is. Now, avidin is found to an extent of 0.05% in the egg white protein. It is denatured by heat, and cooked eggs do not affect the availability of biotin. Now, ovoglobulin, it is a protein consisting of two components G1 and G2, and both are excellent foaming agents. Therefore, egg whites are beaten separately for making of various baked products like sponge cakes, etc. Now, over inhibitor is a egg white protein which is made up of another protein which inhibits certain enzymes like trypsin and chymotrypsin. Now, egg yolk, it contains again certain other protein components, which is the solid content of yolk is about 50%. Lipids, mostly in the egg yolk you will find a large amount of lipids of the egg as well as the proteins. Now, the major proteins in egg yolk are lipoproteins, which include lipovitalins and lipovitalenin. The lipoproteins are responsible for the excellent emulsifying properties of egg yolk, which is used in such products as mayonnaise. Now, the details of the nutritional value of eggs. What I am showing you on the screen with the various components, it is from the book Nutritive Value of Indian Foods, published by National Institute of Nutrition. Now, one single egg, which is average, as I said, about 50 to 55 grams, gives about 86 kilocalories, protein 6.6 grams, carbohydrates very less, and total fat is about 6.6 grams, and there are other details. But one important detail which all of you must know is the cholesterol content of egg, and this cholesterol content is about 213 milligrams. Now, iron is also to a good amount, to an extent of 2.1 milligrams, and you can just see the composition of other vitamins and minerals. Now, let us look at the energy value of eggs. One medium egg, which is about 55 grams, has an energy value of 86 calories, as I have already said. With their significant protein, vitamin and mineral content and relatively low saturated fat content, eggs are a valuable component in a healthy diet. Now, proteins. Eggs are an excellent source of protein and contain about 12 to 14% of proteins for 100 grams of eggs. Egg protein is of high biological value as it contains all the essential amino acids which are needed by the human body, and in fact egg protein is considered as standard protein or reference protein because it has a very high biological value of about 96, which you will see in one of the following tables. Now, eggs therefore complement other food proteins of lower biological value by providing the amino acids that are in short supply in those foods. Now, 12.5% of the weight of the egg is protein, and it is found both in the yolk and the albumin, although protein is more concentrated around the yolk. There is in fact more protein in the albumin. On the evaluation scale most commonly used for assessing protein, as I have said, egg is at the highest point and is used as the reference protein or standard against which all other foods are assessed. Now, this is the table which gives you the biological value of various other foods with regard to protein content, which includes both milk, fish, rice, etc., and also pulses. Now, let us go to the vitamins. Eggs contain most of the recognized vitamins with the exception of vitamin C. Therefore, in fact, egg is considered as a complete food by nutritionists and scientists because only thing it lacks is in vitamin C, but it is a very good source of all other nutrients which are required by the human body. Now, the egg is a good source of all the B vitamins plus the fat soluble vitamin A. It also provides useful amounts of vitamin D as well as some amount of vitamin E. Now, in fact, amongst all the foods, egg only is one food which does contain good amount of vitamin D from the dietary sources. Now, minerals. Eggs contain most of the minerals that the human body requires for health. In particular, eggs are an excellent source of iodine required to make the thyroid hormone and phosphorus, which is required for bone health, along with calcium. The egg provides significant amounts of zinc, important for wound healing, growth and fighting infection, and also it provides selenium, an excellent or important antioxidant, and calcium, which is needed for bone growth and structures of nervous functions also. Eggs also contain significant amounts of iron, as I showed you, 2.1 milligrams, and the vital ingredient of RBCs. But the availability of this iron to the body is slightly uncertain because of certain factors. Now, carbohydrates and the dietary fiber. Eggs contain only traces of carbohydrate and no dietary fiber. Now, fat. 11.2% of the egg content is fat. The fat of an egg is found almost entirely in the yolk. There is less than 0.05% in the albumin. Now, this is one of the reasons why mostly when people have to, those who are on a diet and also those who have suffered with any kind of cardiac problems and with high cholesterol levels, they are suggested to eat mostly egg white rather than yolk, because yolk can be easily separated as it is high in fat content and entire fat is in the yolk, whereas the egg white or the albumin is mostly rich in proteins with very little carbohydrate. Therefore, egg whites are preferred as a healthy option to whole eggs. Approximately 17% of an egg fatty acids are polyunsaturated, 44% are monounsaturated and only 32% are saturated. But one reason why egg yolk is not supposed to be consumed is because it is a very rich source of cholesterol. Now, cholesterol and lecithin are fat-like substances and are essential to the structure and function of all cells in the body. But cholesterol helps to maintain the flexibility and permeability of cell membranes and is also a raw material for the fatty lubricants that help to keep the skin supple. Cholesterol is essential for the production of various sex hormones, cortisol, vitamin D and bile salts. Now, lecithin is involved in general lipid transportation in the blood and in the metabolism of cholesterol. But understand here that egg yolk, which contains the entire cholesterol of the egg, is supposed to be not consumed only for people who have high cholesterol level, and in fact, as a dietitian and nutritionist, we suggest that eggs are an excellent food for the growing children, because cholesterol, as I said, as you have seen, is an important component for the various tissues and it is needed when the child is in a growth phase. Okay students, we will continue with eggs and poultry. The word poultry refers to all domesticated birds raised for their meat. Although chicken are the most popular poultry consumed, other species includes turkey, ducks, geese, guinea fowls and pigeons. Game birds such as pheasant, wild duck and quail are also consumed under the category of the various poultry. Now let us see the classification and how it is categorized. Each kind of poultry which is marketed is classified on the basis of age. Age influences tenderness and the fat content, and this influences the cooking method. The classification according to the Indian standards is as follows. Now first is the broiler or the fryer, which is a 8 to 10 weeks young chicken of either sex, tender flesh and flexible cartilage with a smooth skin. Now rooster, it is 3 to 5 months old, which is a chicken of either sex, which has a tender flesh, smooth skin but less flexible cartilage. Now the next is stag, which is under 10 months of bird, which is a male chicken, somewhat tough with dark colored flesh and hardened breastbone cartilage. Then fourth category is two-wing chicken or fowl, which is over 10 months old, which is a mature female which has a very tough flesh and hardened breastbone cartilage. Now the last is the cock, over 10 months mature male with a coarse skin, tough dark meat and hardened breastbone. Now as you can see, as the number of months are increasing and the poultry is becoming more old, there is a increase in the stiffening of the cartilage and the breastbone. Now let us see the structure. The structure of poultry is similar to the structure of meat, and the structural complexity of meat or poultry can be described as follows, like muscle, muscle bundle, muscle fiber or cell, myofibril and myofilament. Each muscle fiber contains hundreds of myofibrils. Meat in an animal's body is supported by bones and tendons held together by fibrous connective tissue. Now, merged into a large mass, the tendon at the termini of each muscle is anchored to the skeleton. Veins and arteries as well as larger nerves are inside the perimysium, while capillaries and the smaller nerves are in the endomysium. Most often, the poultry meat is also classified as light meat and dark meat. Now, poultry is not divided in many small cuts like meat, but chicken and turkey, however, are usually thought of consisting of two kinds of parts depending on the color of the meat. Now, the light meat, which is made up of breast and wings, has less fat and less connective tissue and cooks much faster. Dark colored meat is made up of legs, or as we call in the common language, drumsticks and thighs, which contains more fat, more connective tissue and takes a longer time to cook. The connective tissue content of poultry meat when compared to meat is minimal because the poultry is a small animal or a bird. Now talks about the composition and nutritive value of the poultry meat. Now muscle tissue consists of three major components: water 75%, protein 20% and fat only up to 5%, and carbohydrates very small quantities. Now I have given you a tabular column which talks about the chemical composition of meat of different species of poultry. Now as you can see, turkey meat happens to be one of the healthiest because of less fat content, and the one which has more fat is the geese and the duck. The poultry meat has high protein content which varies from 18 to 25% and is comparable in quality and nutritive value to other meats. It contains all the essential amino acids which are required for building the body tissue, and there is very little fat on the meat of the young birds, but the fat content is influenced by age and increases with age and also the species of poultry, as you can see in the tabular column. Now in any case, the fat content of poultry is less than half of the other meats. Now chicken fat is more unsaturated than the fat of the red meat, and this has nutritional advantages. Like other animal tissues, poultry flesh is a very good source of B complex vitamins and also minerals. The dark meat of chicken is richer in riboflavin than the light meat, but the light meat is richer in niacin. White meat is lower in fat and calories than dark meat, but skinless dark meat is still lower in fat than some cuts of red meat. Skin color of the chicken does not affect the nutritional value, flavor, tenderness or the fat content. Because of its high protein to fat ratio, poultry meat is advantageous to persons who must restrict the intake of fat. As it is not such an expensive source of protein as meat, use of poultry products in our diet will help avoid malnutrition. Now, to conclude this chapter on eggs and poultry are a class of fleshy foods, and they are very good sources and very rich sources of protein, which has very good biological value. Now, compared to red meat, this fleshy foods and other fleshy foods like fishes, etc., the cost of the poultry and eggs is much less. Therefore, it can be used much often, and also the degree of fat and the percentage of fat and the quality of fat is also much better and more healthier, to be preferred by people who need to avoid the red meat. Therefore, in fact, the eggs and poultry are very good supplementary value in terms of proteins and good fat which they supply to our body, and the calorie content is low because of less carbohydrate content, and excellent sources of various vitamins. With in egg we have the fat soluble vitamins, whereas in poultry we have mostly the B complex vitamins. I hope you have got a good understanding of the poultry and eggs from the section which I have dealt just now, and I hope you have a wonderful day ahead.